For a time, we tried to contact him by radio, but no response.
Welcome, everybody, to week 2 of the Dumb Marks podcast. And what a week it has been. I'll tell you what, man, doing this for the first time last week was definitely exciting, although we did run into some issues I unfortunately dealt with, as Chris let everybody know last week, the quote-unquote shitstorm 2020. While we were recording the podcast, had to end our AEW all-out breakdown as a sewer line backed up in my driveway and literally had shit everywhere. So that's how I spent my Labor Day weekend, was cleaning up that in the driveway, and excited to get back on the microphone here for week 2. Real quick, shout out to everybody that downloaded, listened. We appreciate you guys giving us your ears and listening to something new here in the podcast world. Big thanks to people out in Ukraine, Chris. They 101 downloads for the intro before the first episode, so big shout out to the Ukraine army over there for the Dumb Marks pod. And lastly here, before Chris gives the rundown for week 2, just want to send prayers out to everybody out west that's dealing with the wildfires from from California all the way up to Washington. Prayers for you guys, and hopefully we can get that under control. Some of those pictures this week were very, very scary to look at from a visual sense. So, Chris, why don't you give the listeners here what we're going to cover in week 2?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Steve. Glad everything's worked out, from the shitstorm 2020. Hopefully you don't have to deal with that anymore.
Me either. That was horrible.
This week on the Dumb Marks podcast, we're going to start with Bell to Bell, everything in the world of wrestling from AEW, WWE, MLW, New Japan, and Ring of Honor. After that, we will give our Drink of the Week segment. After Drink of the Week, Steve's going to have another story for us in Parenting 101. And to top everything off this week, we will cover the week in sports with the NFL kickoff, college football, and the world of NBA.
All right, so lend us your ears and get ready for the Dumb Marks pod.
All right, boys and girls, here we go. Bell to bell this week in wrestling. Steve, we're going to start off with the AEW All Out Fallout. This week on Dynamite, they kicked off with MJF and Jericho outside. They kind of teased these two back in November with MJF joining the Inner Circle. Here we go a few months later, and we get another tease that these two might have a feud down the road. But neither man really addressed that, like a match coming down, or they talk about it on Dynamite at all. Where do you think this is going to go?
Eventually, I'd like to see it lead into a feud between the two. Later on in Dynamite, we saw Jericho and Hager announce their intentions to join the tag team division, so it doesn't look like we're going to get this feud anytime soon with them two hopping into the tag team division. There's money there. Obviously, there's money there. They're both great promos. They're both great in-ring workers. I don't know if heel versus heel matchup is a way to go, although Jericho's not so much a heel. He's been around too long, too beloved to be considered a straight heel.
True.
MJF is obviously a heel. We'll see. I like the teaser. It was a great spot to open the show. I like the split screen at the end where both of them are walking away from each other and calling each other losers at the same time. So that was great. But no, great way to open up the show to Impact for Dynamite after their all-out pay-per-view and getting the ball rolling for what was a good show on Wednesday night.
Definitely, like you said, with the two being so great on the promos, I think that's what's really going to sell the feud if and when they get there. I think that sometimes whenever you have great promos building up a feud, the match isn't always what you hope it to be. But I mean, both of them, Jericho's been around for so long. He's such a great talent. And MJF, he's been working with the best of the best in AEW since he started. So I think this could be like the money feud in AEW.
Yeah, but I think before we get to that, we'll definitely see MJF against Wardlow first.
Yeah.
With what transpired on Dynamite. And like I said, Jericho and Hager entering the tag team division. It looks like Le Champion is going to go after a tag team gold instead of trying to recapture that AEW World Heavyweight Championship right now as it goes.
You never know. Maybe Jericho has his eyes set on becoming like the first AEW Grand Slam champion at this point.
Jericho 2 belts.
Let's go into the next segment that kind of really brought in the ratings this week in AEW with the debut of former Rusev, now known as the best man, Miro.
Miro Day. Miro Day. Miro Day. You could hear it from the crowd. It immediately picked up on it.
Yeah.
For Vince, for Miro / Rusev, I'm just gonna call him Miro now because that's what he goes by. Come out on his Twitch gaming channel stream and talk about the story about how Vince was saying Rusev Day is not over and the fans are just chanting it because they don't believe in it. To have him come out on the ring after not being seen on TV in a while or in a ring altogether and have the fans immediately switch that chant over to Miro Day just goes to show you how over that was at the time.
Yeah. Came out looking like an Eminem on steroids with that hair. That completely threw me off. It was actually like any picture I've seen of him since then on social media with the blonde hair, it looks like he's bald to me. You know, just I don't see Rusev at all, which is a good thing. You know, they don't want him to be Rusev 2.0. They want him to be Miro. I think it was Excalibur that said he was the beast from Bulgaria whenever he came out, and I actually preferred like that better than the Bulgarian Brute that
right.
WWE called him. And you know, it seems like all the marketing that AEW's been doing with Miro since Wednesday has just been Miro the best man. But I hope that they do use that tagline that Excalibur gave, because I think, you know, the beast from Bulgaria is who he really is. He isn't a comedy act, you know, even though that's what WWE did with him, unfortunately, and dropped the ball with him. And that's how AEW's bringing him in. You know, is more of a comedy act. And I hope he can actually show off how talented he is, because he is a great athlete. I mean, when he was in NXT, all he was muscle. You know, that he threw people around, and when he debuted in WWE, that's what they did, and then they just slowly transitioned him into that comedy act. And unfortunately, when the WWE machine does that, there's no real easy way to get out of that.
Now, since you brought up the beast from Bulgaria, how do you think the debut went? I know for the most part it was received positive, and that could just be him showing up in AEW after being in WWE for so long. But Mark Madden, who's a popular radio host here in Pittsburgh on Twitter, you know, he said that the debut of Miro could have been done better. He doesn't, you know, the tweet says, in this case, he could definitely have done it better. You know, while he doesn't blame Miro for how he brought in a quote-unquote comedy segment, do you think they could have done the debut better for Miro?
I do. I think that a lot of fans had an issue with how WWE used him as a comedy act for so long, and for AEW to bring him in as a comedy act, I think was a misstep. I'm glad they brought him in. I think he does have some talent. We'll see if he can really shine in AEW or not. But I think that if they would have brought him in, like I said, you know, he's the beast from Bulgaria. If they could have used him as that and just showed him, you know, use his muscle in some sort of way, I think that would have been a better introduction than coming in as the best man.
Agree. You know, comedy-wise, the fans gave it a pop.
Yeah.
They were excited to see him out there, regardless of was the debut done exactly how it should have been. You know, was it as good as Matt Hardy coming in or the reveal as Brody Lee being the Exalted One? Those things are all up to debate. My next question to you is, do you feel that AEW is now WWE light with all the WWE performers coming in. Because you look at it, top of the card, you have Moxley, heavyweight champion for AEW. Obviously, Dean Ambrose from WWE. You have FTR, just won the tag team titles. The Revival, WWE. Brody Lee, tag TNT champion. Luke Harper, WWE. And Miro coming in now. So it is a lot of WWE talent. Do you think that WWE talent is being pushed too much on AEW right now?
That's a very good point. I think that is something that they need to address. TNA Impact Wrestling has always been, the fans have always criticized them for being WWE light. Constantly bringing in released WWE talent and giving them the belt like on night one. Constantly bringing in WWE talent, maybe not even doing anything with them. And I think that's where AEW needs to step away from. They need to be AEW. They can't be WWE light. But we're also in this pandemic right now where a lot of their talent is in different countries that can't come over. So I think right now, this moment in time, that they're just trying to bring in some of these talents just to have talent. Once this pandemic's over, we'll see where we're at with the company. I hope this isn't long-term planning. I hope this is just more short-term planning for AEW.
Now, for those, whether or not people are complaining about there being too many WWE stars on AEW television, and you got to remember, for the last almost 20 years, all there was they had a monopoly on the business. So, yes, there are WWE guys coming into AEW, but at the same time, that's the only company that was relevant for 20 years. So, everybody's going to be seen as a WWE guy. Going back in the day, WWE took wrestlers from all the territories. From WCW, you had Undertaker was in WCW first. Triple H was in WCW first. Kevin Nash was in WCW first. A lot of people don't realize that because Vinny Vegas and Oz were two of the worst gimmicks ever created, but he was in WCW first. You had Steve Austin was in WCW first. Chris Jericho, Scott Hall, the Diamond Stud. I mean, you had people from WCW join WWE, and yes, they became bigger stars in WWE, but they were from elsewhere prior. Talent is going to move around. You're going to see that, especially with these smaller companies. You're going to see talent move from promotion to promotion. And like you said, hopefully the whole card isn't going to be WWE top heavy, but those guys that were brought in from WWE were not being used, were not being pushed as top guys there. And maybe they are top talent, and AEW is seeing what WWE missed while they had them under contract.
Yeah. And that's always been kind of the thing, too. Whenever Booker T left WWE, he had some fame as, King Booker, but everybody kind of felt like, okay, why is Booker T being treated as a comedy act? It was popular. The fans always popped for King Booker, but it wasn't until he went to TNA that he kind of got that edge back, found success with Kurt Angle, Sting, Kevin Nash as the Main Event Mafia, and kind of, regained his legend status in a way. No pun or knock on the TNA Legends title that he had there. But I think, Allie came into AEW from TNA, but she wasn't regarded as a TNA talent. Cody left WWE, went to TNA, went to New Japan, went to Ring of Honor. So when they started this, he wasn't really regarded as a WWE talent. He kind of made a name for himself, just like AJ Styles did when AJ left TNA. And I think that's, in a way, sometimes what fans are looking for, them to make a name for themselves before, they jump to another promotion.
I think we as fans need to be less concerned about the moniker WWE guy, TNA guy, woman, whatever promotion you want to list, and just look at it as, oh crap, he's here now.
No.
She's here now. And like those old shots across the bow during the Monday Night Wars when Luger showed up on the first Nitro, and you had Rick Rude on live on Nitro and also showing as being on the taped Raw the same exact night. Like, look for those surprises and those quote-unquote shots across the bow and see, hey, talent is moving from place to place. It's only good for the business. It's going to get people talking about the business. More eyes are going to be drawn to all of these companies with people moving from place to place. You can follow your favorite wrestler around and stumble upon new wrestlers that you didn't know were in the promotions that they're going to because you didn't watch those previously. So, all in all, I'm happy with the movement, but I don't want, like we said initially when we started talking about this, we don't want it to become viewed as WWE light like TNA did, which saddled TNA for years. And as a brand new company coming up on a year in the industry, you don't really want that moniker as something to be stuck with you.
No, absolutely not. And one of the things that I saw someone post on Twitter this week, back in 1998, the night after WrestleMania 14, Shawn had to step away because of back issues. So Triple H came out saying that, Shawn took his ball and he went home, and that he had to step up as the leader of DX. And he goes, whenever you do that, you have to look to your blood. And he brought out X-Pac. And I saw people on Twitter say that that's what this segment with Miro kind of reminded them of. That it was that shot in the arm that, X-Pac came out that night and, kind of bashed WCW and saying that, he's home now. And they feel like that's what Miro did. He did a quick little bash at WWE, but it was just establishing that, hey, I'm an AEW guy now.
No, absolutely. Now, the second point to Miro showing up, besides the fact of the shock and awe of it, AEW this week hit over 1 million viewers.
Yes.
First time over 1 million since, their first episode of Dynamite?
Yeah, their first episode of Dynamite, they did 1.4 million. Their second episode, Dynamite, did 1.018, and this one ranks in as the third highest with 1.016 million.
Okay, so we see them hit 1 million, right? NXT the last 2 weeks on Tuesday night have been over 800,000 viewers, the most that they've had, during this quote-unquote Wednesday Night Wars. Raw and SmackDown are steady with viewers just because they're so entrenched in the mind of people that watch professional wrestling. Do you think with NXT having more success on Tuesday night that a switch will be made and they'll move to Tuesdays and let AEW run unopposed on Wednesday nights?
A few weeks ago when this was first brought up, I didn't think that was a good idea because I like the Wednesday Night War. Not necessarily that it is a war, but I just liked having the two shows back to back. And, unfortunately, a lot of times whenever I go to switch the channel, whatever show I'm watching and I go to switch, the other one's on commercial break. Back in the day whenever I was watching Raw and I switched to WCW, they were usually on a segment that I could watch. So I don't really get that same feel anymore, but I still like that they're on the same night. Today, though, I feel differently. With the increase in viewers that NXT got the past few weeks on Tuesday nights, I think it might be best for business if NXT goes to Tuesday and leaves AEW unopposed on Wednesday.
Yeah, I could see that. Now, there was an announcement made this week. If NXT were to move to Tuesday night, AEW wouldn't necessarily be unopposed on Wednesday nights. MLW announced that they're moving to Wednesday nights coming this fall. And, I got to give Court Bauer a lot of credit with MLW. It's a great program. A lot of stars on there. MJF was in MLW. Brian Pillman Jr. They have the Von Erichs. Their champion, Jacob Fatu, is a star amongst stars. MLW just locked him down in a long-term contract.
I even saw Lucha Brothers there for the first time.
Lucha Brothers were there for the first time. So Court Bauer announces MLW moves to Wednesday. They could be streamed on Fubo Sports. You could see them on cable at BN Sports, and then on demand on The Zone, DAZN, The Zone. Good move for MLW getting on Wednesday nights?
I think it is. I believe Court Bauer said that they were going to be at 7 o'clock on there. So it'd almost be a lead-in for AEW and NXT if NXT stays on Wednesday night.
That's smart. If they run an hour show, which is fine for them, just like when NWA Power was on, Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, an hour show. I don't think it needs to be more than that, given the talent and that. So that's a great lead-in to AEW if they're unopposed, or AEW NXT. I think it is smart getting on a night where eyes are on professional wrestling, Wednesday night now, and being the lead-in for those other companies.
And whenever, I haven't watched MLW in a few weeks, they've been done with shows, I think, since like June or July now. But it's an easy watch. It's an hour. It's usually like a handful of matches that are, none of them go very long. So it's something that you're watching something fast-paced and it's easy to watch. I'm a big fan of MLW Fusion. I think Court Bauer does have a great promotion. He had, during his original run, it was very much like a ECW light in a way. He used a lot of ECW originals and some new talent, like CM Punk was down there. But I think he got the formula right. He stepped away for a bit, worked for WWE and some other companies, and MLW has their stride's been going strong.
Yep, I agree. I'm looking for big things from MLW, and you can always catch them on their YouTube channel as well if you're not able to stream it or watch it on Wednesday nights.
I hope that continues.
Which is a plus. I think it will. I think they'll continue to use that. They have a nice following on YouTube, so I think they'll continue to put their programming on there as well. Two other promotions that are in the news today, and as we record this on Saturday, ROH is getting their Pure title tournament underway, and New Japan came out with the brackets for the G1. What are you looking from each tournament? Do you feel one tournament will be better than the other one? There's some heavy hitters in both tournaments, so I'll be interested to see. That A block in the G1 is just murderer's row. I don't know who's going to come out of that A block. I like the brackets for the Pure title championship and Ring of Honor. What are you expecting from these two tournaments?
Ring of Honor's disappointed me in the past year. I felt, the last event that I've really watched from them was the Saturday before WrestleMania last year that they did their Madison Square Garden show with New Japan. I felt like in that episode, Ring of Honor matches really weren't up to par with the quality of the New Japan matches in that event. And for the rest of 2019, I just felt like Ring of Honor's quality kept going downhill. I think that had a lot to do with, a lot of talent leaving for AEW. I think that also had a lot to do with, it seemed like New Japan kind of stepped away from their partnership with them. And everything that Ring of Honor did for the rest of 2019 seemed just very focused on Ring of Honor. I think, from what I understand, Bully Ray's no longer the booker down there. So they've had some changes in that.
Marty Scurll, when he signed his deal with ROH, he got head booker.
Okay.
That was part of his deal. So we'll see. I think bringing the Pure Title Championship tournament back is a good first step in the right direction for Ring of Honor. And my main issue with Ring of Honor has always been the same. You have the backing of Sinclair. Mm-hmm. You have the money. It's never fully been invested into Ring of Honor. It's kind of a hobby project of Sinclair. Like, oh, yes, I do this on the weekends, but it's not my full-time job.
Yeah.
I believe the talent that Ring of Honor had and the heights that talent was able to bring that promotion to, they could have been AEW before AEW. They could have taken over TNA/Impact spot as being viewed as the number 2 wrestling program or wrestling promotion in the States. But Sinclair, to me, just never felt like they wanted to put the money into it to get it to where it needs to go. And as we see, all of that talent has left for other promotions. So they are what they are, as Denny Green, former coach of the Cardinals, once said after a postgame. They are who we thought they were. Like, they haven't changed. They've always been Ring of Honor. Yeah. Will they be there? Yes. Will I turn them on? If there's nothing else on to watch good in-ring action, yes. But am I dying to watch Ring of Honor? No.
I think, it's kind of funny to say it this way, but I think COVID right now was a blessing in disguise for Ring of Honor. It gave them a few months off. Maybe, hopefully, with this tournament, allows them to regroup and come back, step in the right direction. I'm really not sure who I see winning this tournament just yet. Ring of Honor has really been reliant on Jay Lethal for a number of years. And first round in Block A, he's wrestling Dalton Castle. I could easily see either of those two men winning the tournament. Those are two men that Ring of Honor seems to really enjoy and push out there. Block A opening match, Jay Lethal versus Dalton Castle. I say whoever wins that wins the tournament.
I'll go on the other side of the bracket, and I'm going to go with the Octopus, Jay Gresham.
Okay.
If you're talking pure title, pure athlete, pure in-ring technical worker, I think Gresham hits all those dots and would be a great champion for that title and can turn it into something that can be elevated and be seen on a main stage by him being the champion.
Okay.
And New Japan, G1. Like I said, it's loaded.
Yeah. It is loaded.
I have no idea who to even place a bet on if I was a betting man in this one. One thing, to tie back in the Miro debuting, word is that his contract with AEW allows him to work with New Japan, which to me is very interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe we see him in a G1 next year, possibly, but the excitement that I get thinking about him and Jeff Cobb in a ring together, the former Monster Matanza from Lucha Underground, to me, them two in a ring together would just be Haas on Haas, as JR likes to say, and they would absolutely tear it up.
That sounds like a good never open weight title fight right there. I really don't know who I expect to see win this either. Before I even go into the G1 tournament, you mentioned Miro's contract. Do you know if his contract's supposed to be similar to Moxley's, like where he can't do anything in the U.S. with them? Or
those details I don't know about. I didn't see anything else come out about that. Whether or not it's if it's in the States, he's strictly AEW talent. I would believe Tony Khan, if he's structuring these contracts to let these guys go over to New Japan with the hopes of bringing on a partnership with them later on down the line. I would think he would keep it to where Miro would be like Moxley, and if it's in the States, AEW only. Other than that, he can do New Japan when they're in Japan and on New Japan World TV.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be for the best too. But I think there's a lot of talent, especially in that never open weight division, that I see Miro could have some really quality matches. And getting back to the beast from Bulgaria, I think that's where he could really shine with that. If this was a normal time with New Japan, like if Gato was still in charge of booking in New Japan, I'd probably say Okada would take this. Okada or Tanahashi. That seems to be the two guys that they constantly go back and forth with. I don't ever like whenever they put the champion in the tournament, because the point of winning the tournament is to get a title shot. So Naito's holding 2 belts and he's in this tournament. So right there I'm rolling Naito out. But the thing that is really interesting with New Japan right now is that they're willing to change things up. So Naito could still have a shot. My money would normally be on Okada, but, with them putting the title belt on Evil there for a month or two, however long that was, I really don't know what direction New Japan's going in right now with who they want to be the next number one contender. So I'm just going to be interested in following this and seeing what they do with it.
Absolutely. And then moving on here to another promotion that made an announcement this week, and piggybacking off of a strong performance of their women's champion at All Out in what many call match of the night, Thunder Rosa, the NWA, this coming Tuesday, September 15th, will have their Primetime Live, main evented by Mike Bennett versus Nick Aldis. Now, one of the real treasures of the NWA was the 10 Pounds of Gold series that they did.
Yes.
Those videos are what attracted me back to the NWA before NWA Power launched. I watched the 10 Pounds of Gold episode this week on Aldis and Bennett, and again, done very well. Made me want to tune in and watch this matchup. I believe story-wise, it fits where both competitors are at in their career, and coming out of COVID and getting started back up, I feel like they told a good story there on the 10 Pounds of Gold. So they announced the Primetime Live. It'll be shown on Fight TV. It's only $8, so it's not going to break your bank.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
If you pre-order all 4 episodes, because they're going to run these like TNA shows back in the day where they're doing weekly, quote-unquote, pay-per-views. If you order all 4, it breaks down to $6 an episode or $6 a pay-per-view. Again, not going to break the bank. You're going to get good wrestling. NWA has great talent on their roster. They were putting out good matches and shows with NWA Power. So some of the other people that are on that card, you have Aldis versus Bennett, Hammerstone versus Sparks, Joseph versus Shapiro, Camille versus Monroe. The Dickinsons are in action, and Thunder Rosa's in action. So what are you looking from NWA with these Primetime Live events?
I'm expecting something unexpected this week. Much like TNA back in the day, like you said, they need a reason to get your money every week right now. You know, like it's nothing that's going to break the bank, but they need to give you a reason to tune in the following week. You know, they need to give you a reason to tune in this week. That's why they're doing the 10 Pounds of Gold series again. You know, doing Aldis versus Mike Bennett on that, you know, I think did a great job of selling this match. I'm not a big Mike Bennett fan. I haven't been. You know, I watched him in New Japan. I watched him in Ring of Honor. I watched him in TNA, and watched him in WWE. My overall feeling with him in WWE was that WWE did with him, you know, what he can do. You know, which I didn't think was much. You know, I didn't expect anything from him. When he got hired, I didn't really like that signing. And I was kind of glad when WWE just didn't really do a whole lot with him.
Well, he was dealing with substance abuse issues, he was in rehab for a while, and you know, kudos to him, and glad to see that he's healthy and mentally clear, and is able to focus back on professional wrestling without having those demons dragging him down. So good on him for that.
Yeah.
And that, so
I mean, one thing people love is a
redemption story.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's coming into this as the true underdog.
Mm-hmm.
They played that up that way on the 10 Pounds of Gold. So we'll see how it all shakes out. A shocker, wouldn't be surprising, as you said, to get the world talking. They've pulled stuff off like that before to get their name in the headlines since Billy Corgan took over for them as president of the NWA. So we'll see here what comes about with that. Again, I know it's another night of wrestling and more to consume, but money-wise, you're not going to beat it for the $6.
No,
you order all 4 on Fight, and you can stream it, you know, as it is. So I will definitely probably be checking that out to see what happens there. And anything else before we wrap up this week from Bell to Bell?
No, I think that covers this week in wrestling. You know, there's a lot this upcoming week. Like you said, you know, we have return of the NWA this upcoming Tuesday night. Which will be going head to head with Impact Wrestling.
Right.
We got AEW. Not sure where they're landing yet this upcoming week.
Wednesday or Thursday, depends on NBA playoffs.
Yeah, so we could see the return of the Wednesday Night War this week, or we might get NXT Wednesday, and AEW on Thursday. And then we'll see the continuation of the RH Pure tournament this week too. So we'll see how things go.
All right, and that, folks, is Bell to Bell.
chug, 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 chug.
This week, Drink of the Week segment is brought to you by One Night Stands and Next Day Walk of Shames.
This week's Drink of the Week segment is going to be Blockhouse Brewing Pumpkin Ale. For those of you that aren't familiar with Blockhouse Brewing, it is the craft beer division of Pittsburgh Brewing Company, or Iron City. So, all right, Steve, let's take a quick drink and see what we think.
I'll tell you right out the gate, as I went to sip it out of the bottle, you could smell all the spices and cinnamon and everything else that is in this beer. Initially your smell leads to your taste buds, so you're getting that initial, okay, I know what to expect with this beer, and I gotta say, it's great. It's a great taste for an Iron City beer, and I'm not into Iron City at all. Don't kill me, Pittsburghers, fellow Yinzers. I just can't do the Iron City. This is absolutely amazing. I believe it's 7% alcohol.
It is, yeah.
7% alcohol. This might be my new favorite pumpkin ale.
Yeah, I agree. This is actually one that I've had before. My go-to would be either Sam Adams Oktoberfest or Southern Tier's Pumpkin this time of year. Those were really my top two. A couple years ago, a buddy of mine turned me on to this, and I had never heard of Blockhouse Brewing before that. And this is easily at the top of my list. I've had it before. I knew what to expect to try it, but it's been well over a year since I've last had one. So it's exactly what I remember. It's a little bit heavier of a beer, but it's still drinkable. Tons of flavor profile in here, with what you expect in a pumpkin beer. It really is, Halloween or fall, Thanksgiving in a bottle.
This is absolutely for this weekend, kicking off the NFL season and college football. This is definitely a sit in a recliner, feed up with a good pumpkin ale and a hoodie type of beer for sure.
Absolutely.
So on the sumo scale, 1 to 5 sumos, I'm going to go with 5 sumos.
Nice. Okay. I'm actually going to, it is my favorite, but I'm going 4.5 on it. I just think, I don't ever like to give a full 5 out of 5 on something, but, it's definitely at the top of my list for a lot. Like you said, for being, a fall beer, right now if we could be outside, watching a sporting event, this would be perfect, or doing some type of tailgate with it.
All right, folks, there you go. That was a 5-star rating from myself and a 4.5 from Chris. And as always with Drink of the Week, when we wrap up the segment, we ask audience to pick up your glasses, your bottles, your cans, whatever you have in your hand, and join us in with a little toast. So here goes to wood ships, to good ships, and ships that sail the seas. But the best ships are friendships, and friends will always be.
And now, here's Steve with this week's Parenting 101.
Thanks, Chris. And for all you parents out there, these Parenting 101 sessions will be my advice to you as a parent as what not to do and how not to raise your children. So in my household, and being from Pittsburgh, where, the key word for somebody that's an a-hole is a jag-off, we reward for being a jagoff and for coming up with smart comments and quick-witted quips that will offend others, but in my house, you get rewarded for doing that. So this week, I went upstairs to talk to my daughter during school, and I walked in a room, and she's there on her phone like all 10-year-old girls are at this day and age, and I asked her, did you finish your schoolwork? Yes. What are you doing now? Playing on my phone. Okay, what'd you eat for lunch? She goes, I'm not going to tell you. I go, well, did you eat lunch or not? She said, yeah, I ate lunch. I said, what'd you eat? And she goes, I don't know, guess. And I'm like, well, was it chicken nuggets? No. Was it chicken patty? No. Was it grilled cheese sandwich? No. She goes, it starts with an N. And I'm like, an N? Nachos? And she goes, Nunya Business. So my wife proceeded to give her $2, and that, folks, is Parenting 101. All right, folks, this week in sports is going to be jam-packed with a lot of stuff going on in the world of professional sports. We have the NFL season kicking off. A lot of players are getting broken off and getting big bank accounts nowadays. You had Deshaun Watson sign a deal this week. Right now, on Saturday, as we record, Alvin Kamara from the Saints and Dalvin Cook, two top running backs in the league, broke off and got deals. Cam Hayward for the Steelers signed a long-term contract that'll have him finish out his career in the Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. So a lot of stuff going on with the NFL contract-wise and on the field-wise with Week 1 opening up. The NBA season, we are getting ready to get into the conference finals for both the West and the East. The NHL already has the NHL playoffs in the Western Eastern Conference Finals, so getting ready for the Stanley Cup there. And Major League Baseball is coming up on finishing up their 60-game regular season, to which they're supposedly transferring over into a bubble to do the playoffs leading up to the World Series. Interesting enough, with all this going on, for the first time ever this week, Thursday night, you had NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, MLS, all play on the same day. Your thoughts, Chris?
I mean, never happened before. Probably, who knows if that'll ever happen again.
It probably won't ever happen again. It won't. COVID has come and changed up the landscape for everything. As a consumer of sports who grew up playing sports and has coached sports, this has been almost, not going to say has been, almost sports overload with so many things on at one time. But as a sports fan, you got to love the fact that you have so many options this time of year. And I know football's king, but I like being able to watch NBA or flip to a major league game or, tune in the NHL. Not NHL so much. It's the Penguins were out in the first round.
Yeah. But
no, I think it's great for fans that all these sports are going on at the same time.
Absolutely. I definitely see this right now as being a test for next year. I don't see the same situations happening in 2021 that happened this year in 2020. I don't think it'll be as overloaded in the future, but it is a great time. For as much as people missed sports there for a few months, everybody's getting their fill right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And who knows if we get a full college football season and a full NFL season. We'll cross our fingers and see if that goes all the way and they're able to play all 16 games and get a season done. But it is a great time to be a sports fan. And, who knows, 20 years from now, we'll get a 30 for 30, the night where all the sports leagues played a game type of deal, that we'll all look on when we're in our, early 60s and go, I remember that 2020, which 2020 has become a swear word in my house, not just
thank God that's over with.
Yeah. Thank God that's over with this, right? But yeah, no, we'll look back on it, years from now when they talk about it and discuss it and go, man, what a time to be alive, actually. You get to see everything all at once. So good stuff there.
So I actually didn't know about MLB possibly doing a bubble. They said were they thinking about doing that?
They haven't. I was watching the Pat McAfee show a couple weeks ago when that news was floated around. I haven't seen anything else follow up with it as far as if they are doing it or not going to do it. I guess time will tell. If they are going to do it, I'm sure there's going to have to be something said sooner rather than later because of them coming towards the home stretch of the 60-game shortened season. So we'll see. Listen, with Major League Baseball, the playoffs are their moneymaker. Besides the revenue that they get from local TV markets, the playoffs is where they generate a lot of their revenue. Yeah. They have to make sure that they get through the playoffs and they get a World Series champion crown. One of the Giants just tested positive for COVID yesterday, so they postponed games. I believe that they were going to be playing today for the Giants. So yeah, you can't go into your playoffs and have something where, like with the Marlins, pop up and 11 players get it because they quote unquote go out to get milk from the store. Yeah, so doing a bubble would be smart of Major League Baseball. I think it can be done if you get, the 14 teams or whatever Major League playoffs is nowadays into one location for a month or so, 2 months, and running out that way. That would be smart of them from a pure money standpoint.
Yeah. So they ran out to get milk. That's what the kids are calling it these days?
That's what the kids are calling it these days. So, I know that a lot of things are going on with NFL kicking off, and we broke down the division winners last week and that. But there's a couple topics in sports that came up during the week this week that I think we could touch on and go a little bit more in depth into. One of them is near and dear to people here in Pittsburgh, but it raises a question as well. Roberto Clemente, famous Pittsburgh Pirates player, great man, great humanitarian, passed away way too soon in a tragic crash while flying to Puerto Rico to provide aid in his home country. They had Roberto Clemente Day on Thursday this week. Granted, the Pirates, I think, lost 9-1 or whatever. So great way to show out, Buccos. But in Major League Baseball, the Pirates all wore the number 21. Any Puerto Rican player in Major League Baseball was allowed to wear the number 21. It's a huge celebration day in Puerto Rico itself. And I saw the tweet out there that Major League Baseball should retire the number 21 for Roberto Clemente, just like they did for Jackie Robinson. Your thoughts on that?
I'm all for that. I mean, I think, it's something that probably should have been done a long time ago. I think we talked about that someone had the argument of maybe Roberto Clemente wasn't as big of a star as Jackie Robinson was, if we're going to compare them. But, I mean, for how many players in Major League Baseball have come from Puerto Rico since Roberto Clemente, I think he's just as impactful.
I don't know if the argument was so much he was a star, that Clemente and Robinson were the same amount of star power. It was more of the argument was Clemente being Puerto Rican, that impact was not as overall impactful, for lack of a better word, as Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier and being the first black Major League Baseball player. Robinson's number being retired, absolutely. 100% agree with Major League Baseball doing that. They had Jackie Robinson Day, and sadly, that was the same day that Chadwick Boseman passed away, for Black Panther.
Had played Jackie Robinson.
And played Jackie Robinson in the movie 42. So Robinson's number being retired, I absolutely 100% agree with it. Clemente's number, I think what Major League Baseball did this year, letting the Puerto Rican players wear it on Roberto Clemente Day, is how they should do it moving forward. Okay. The Pirates, if they want to retire the number altogether, which I'm not even sure if it is retired.
I think it might be retired with the Pirates.
If it is retired, then okay, nobody else can wear that number for the Pirates. I agree with that. You don't have to retire it throughout Major League Baseball, but let the Puerto Rican players celebrate not only a great player but an even better man, and have them wear and honor him by wearing 21 on Roberto Clemente Day. I think that's the right move to make going forward for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the step in the right direction. I think, in a few years we'll probably have the discussion that the number probably will be retired. Because if they get enough players that wear the number every year, I think that's where it'll eventually lead to. But or having every player, wear that number on that day. I think that isn't going to be too far of a stretch either.
Right.
But no, I think that the argument can be there for him to be retired across Major League Baseball. But whatever keeps his name in the mouths of baseball fans, I think is for the best.
Right. I agree. And then moving on to another topic coming out of the world of the NBA, the hashtag #MeToo movement was big here recently, and the announcement was made that Doris Burke, who is an analyst for ESPN for NBA, will call the conference finals and the NBA finals for ESPN Radio. She'll be the first woman to serve as a game analyst on a radio or network TV broadcast that far into the playoffs. So history being made there by having a woman's voice on the conference finals and finals for the NBA. I know the NBA has made strides with women as regards to coaches. The Spurs, their G League team, and forgive me, I forget the woman's name, but she was the head coach of the Spurs G League team. They won a title. They believe she's on their staff as well. So the NBA is making moves for women's empowerment and giving women's voice to call sports. Me personally, I love listening to Doris Burke. She's a great analyst, knows the game in and out, gives as much information as any of her male colleagues. So to me, this is long overdue for a woman to be put in that spotlight. She's definitely the woman to do it. And we've seen, tying into the world of professional wrestling, we've seen, women call. Renee Young was a broadcaster on Raw, first woman to broadcast Raw live.
And NXT. Beth Phoenix is currently one of the voices of NXT. We saw with AEW recently with their women's tag team tournament, Veda Scott was brought on as a commentator with Tony Schiavone and did very well there. So, we can even go back even further with, when Chuck on Saturday Night started, Sunny was the commentator on there. She was really the first woman to do commentary. And then, back in the day when we were kids, Mike McGurk was the female announcer, the first female announcer in WWE. Then years later, with Lillian Garcia, and really now, their announcing staff is very female heavy. It's not, always full time, but
no, I feel, in this year, with everything that's gone on, and social justice issues and the fights for equality, and I feel that having a woman's voice presenting a quote unquote, old timers, it's a male world, male dominated world. It's a male game. You can't talk about my sport because you're female. I believe those days are over with. Women are just as knowledgeable as men when it comes to these sports nowadays.
Absolutely.
The women aren't just needed to cover and call WNBA games or women's soccer games. You can have a woman in the booth. They're not just sideline reporters anymore. That for so long it was just, hey, we'll have two guys in a booth and we'll throw it down to the woman sidelines reporter. I feel like this is well overdue. Congratulations to Doris Burke and the NBA for pulling the trigger on having her announce these games for the conference finals and the finals. And, I believe her doing this will open up more doors for women in other sports and show, hey, yes, we're girls, but we can talk about the game just as well, if not better, than the men do.
Absolutely. I think, ESPN has been doing it for years. I don't remember who the first woman was on ESPN to call any action, or provide the news. I remember Robin Roberts, and now she's a household name, and Erin Andrews started out the same way too. And, another one that became a household name. So I think it's been a slow build to getting to this moment. Unfortunately, it was a slow build, but
right.
It's about time that we're getting there, and I agree. They're just as knowledgeable to be calling the action as they were to be on the sideline before.
Absolutely. So again, congratulations to Doris Burke and the NBA making headways. It's well overdue, like we said. And and just a step in the right direction with everything so negative and so divisive going on right now. It's good to have that platform be provided, for, representation is key. We saw that with Chadwick Boseman in Black Panther and how younger African American kids related to, I have a superhero that looks like me. Well, now there may be little girls that are dribbling and shooting hoops in their backyard, and then they come in and turn on the game and they see and hear her call a game, and they go, I have representation in a world now that I can listen to.
I think that's all. Even since we were kids, that's been something that has been an issue of. I always don't think that adults know how much kids pay attention to stuff, and just having, like you said, with that representation being key, kids pick up on things, and if they see something, they think that they can, do that too, and yeah, congratulations to Doris on this.
Absolutely. All right, well, I think that's all we're going to talk about for this week in sports. Like I said, NFL season's getting ready to kick off. We got college games going on today, Clemson and Wake Forest tonight, Saturday night, full slate of NFL games tomorrow and Monday. The Lakers look to wrap up the Rockets in their series tonight. The Clippers and Nuggets got extended another game. We'll see if the Nuggets can be the first team in NBA history to come back from 3-1 deficit in consecutive playoff series in the same season here. So a lot of stuff to watch and take in during the week, and I know I'll be excited to sit down on the couch tomorrow and put in my fantasy lineup and watch football for all day from noon till midnight. All right, folks, that was This Week in Sports.
All right, folks, Steve's giving me the go-home cues here, so let's wrap this up this week of the Dumb Marks podcast up. This week we covered bell to bell, everything in AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, MLW, and WWE. We also did the drink of the week with the Blockhouse Brewing Pumpkin Ale. Steve gave us a great story with Parenting 101. And then this week in sports, we talked about Roberto Clemente's number being retired and NBA using some female commentary. We want to thank you for listening to our episode 1 and hopefully listening to this week's episode 2. You know where you found us this week, but for those of you that don't, or if you tell some friends to subscribe, we're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Simplecast, SoundCloud, TuneIn Podcasts, Deezer, Player FM, Stitcher, and Pocket Casts. The Dumb Marks podcast should be coming soon to Amazon Music and Google Podcasts. All right, Steve, you want to send us home?
Yes, buddy. Again, thanks everybody for listening. Remember, rate, review, subscribe. Throw us a comment, anything you liked, what you didn't like. We'll take any criticism, any positive comments. We like all feedback, so we want to be as interactive and engaging as possible on this podcast, so feel free to reach out to us. And always remember that dreams cost nothing, they're free. The hard part is just keeping them going. So give up your dreams, keep them going, and until next time, you can catch us around the way.